Hello and welcome back to Nerd Dog. The second Thor Love and Thunder trailer is finally here, and with it we got our first look at Gorr the God Butcher and his battle against Thor. If you're interested in Gorr the God Butcher, you can check out our video breakdown of his comic book origins and what we may expect from him in the MCU. If you have any questions about the second Thor Love and Thunder trailer, leave a comment below and we'll try to answer them as best we can. The second trailer starts off with Thor on the same planet where we saw him fighting alongside the Guardians of the Galaxy in the teaser trailer. Korg is speaking with some of the native children, telling them the story of Thor, with a few embellishments. We get a few more scenes of Thor and the Guardians, showing off a little bit more of similar scenes from the first teaser. Shifting to New Asgard on Earth, we can see that it's turned into a tourist destination with cruise ships coming and going. We get a quick look at Thor standing next to Korg, changing his clothing using Stormbreaker. This is the same planet where he waved goodbye to the Guardians in the teaser, which resembles Sakaar. This probably isn't Sakaar, but oddly enough, there have been rumors from reliable sources that say Scar, Hulk's son in the comics, will show up in She-Hulk. If that's true, and this is Sakaar, there's a small chance that this is some sort of lead-in to Scar's appearance in She-Hulk. It's unlikely, but something fun to think about. As Korg continues his story, we see more of Thor's training montage that allows him to go from dad bod to god bod, as Korg puts it. We then get a better look at the scene from the end of the first teaser trailer, where we first saw Jane Foster's Mighty Thor. This seems to be taking place on Earth, fighting against what could potentially be Black Berserkers. We don't get a clear look at the enemies, so it's difficult to tell at this point, but in the comics, Gorr is able to use the Necrosword to summon creatures called Black Berserkers that do his bidding. This probably takes place early in the movie before Gorr is introduced to Thor and Mighty Thor, so it may also be some lesser enemies used to show off Jane's fighting skills completely unrelated to Gorr. Thor sees Mjolnir and begins to reach for it, but then realizes it has a new owner, Mighty Thor. In disbelief, Thor recognizes that it's Jane Foster wielding Mjolnir. We see what looks like Aragorn, Valkyrie's winged horse, but it's difficult to tell who's riding it. It's probably Valkyrie, but looking at the silhouette, it could also be Mighty Thor. We see Thor and Korg standing inside the same government building where we saw Valkyrie having a political meeting of some sort in the teaser. Then we get another shot of Mighty Thor doing a superhero landing.
Superhero landing! Yeah, that's really hard on your knees.
In a place that could be some sort of shrine or may not even be on Earth. This may have something to do with how she gets her powers, but it's too early to tell at this point. It switches back to Earth in the aftermath of the battle where Thor and Mighty Thor first meet. Thor says it's been 8 years, 7 months, and 6 days since Thor and Jane last saw each other. Now we don't know exactly when Thor Love and Thunder takes place, but if we assume Thor is going off of Avengers Endgame when he traveled back in time and saw Jane in Asgard during the events of Dark World, that means Thor Love and Thunder takes place around 2031. Probably not the case since Multiverse of Madness takes place around 2025, so that doesn't quite add up. Let's assume Thor isn't counting Endgame since he only got a glimpse of Jane and they didn't actually speak. If we then assume Love and Thunder also takes place in 2025, 8 years and 7 months would be around 2016 or 2017, which is roughly the time of Thor Ragnarok. Jane Foster isn't in that movie, but I guess we can just assume Thor saw her around that time. Anyway, moving on, we get the same shot of Olympus from the teaser, and additional confirmation that Valkyrie is with Thor and Korg in Olympus. Valkyrie comments about sensing feelings, implying that Thor is showing romantic feelings for Jane again. We then see Thor and Mighty Thor on the ship that takes them from New Asgard to Olympus. There's an interesting cut back to what is presumably much earlier in the movie on the planet where Thor and the Guardians part ways, as Thor denies whatever is being discussed. It matches with Valkyrie asking Thor about Jane, but this is clearly from a completely different scene. But we also see Valkyrie on that same planet as they're standing next to what looks like a ship. The simple explanation here is that Thor needed a ride home and Valkyrie came to pick him up. But there could be more going on than meets the eye. Next up, we get a look at what seems to be a moving space rock that's heading toward a dark cloud in space. There's a structure on top of the asteroid, but it's hard to pinpoint if this is a specific comic book reference. Of note, when Thor and Gorr fight in the comics, it is in a somewhat similar location. It's not an exact match, but again, just something fun to make note of. The black cloud in the distance could be the planet or moon where we see Gorr fighting the good guys later on in the trailer, so this could be Gorr or Thor and his team on their way to that location. We finally get our first look at Gorr the God Butcher as he reaches for All Black, the Necrosword stuck in the ground. This could be on Earth, or really anywhere, but there's a chance this is on Gorr's homeworld after he witnessed a fight between two gods, one of which was Null, the symbiote god. This is what happens in the comics, but we don't know if we'll see Null in the MCU since there may be some rights issues with Sony and Spider-Man. We see Gorr walking through what looks like a hallway made of symbiotes. Again, due to the Spider-Man rights issues, this may have nothing to do with the symbiotes at all, but it certainly looks like something the symbiote god would make. Back to another shot from the teaser of Thor and Korg standing in front of a giant fallen beast. We hear Christian Bale's Gorr talking about his vow to kill all gods, hence his name, Gorr the God Butcher. We're guessing he's not on Earth in this scene. It could possibly be Olympus, or it could be some random planet, but it's likely earlier in the movie when we first meet Gorr, since you can see he doesn't look like he's been corrupted by the Necrosword at this point. We get another look at Thor and Korg on the same planet where we saw the giant fallen beast, then Thor back in New Asgard on Earth as he prepares to set sail for Olympus. As we see the ship coming down into Olympus, we get a scene of Thor and Mighty Thor talking on the ship as Thor is complimenting Jane on her fighting skills. This could be a reference to her fight on Earth when they first meet, but it may also be in reference to what looks like a battle on Olympus where we see Thor, Mighty Thor, and Valkyrie fighting Olympian soldiers. There's another shot of Thor, Mighty Thor, Korg, and Valkyrie walking through Olympus as Jane talks about defeating her first bad guy. This is probably not a reference to Gorr, which means there's likely another, smaller scale bad guy that she's referencing to. It could be the Black Berserkers, or it may just be another antagonist who Jane and Thor fought on Earth when they first met. This is followed by another shot of Gorr destroying a small planet or moon with the Necrosword, before flashing back to the group on Asgard continuing their previous conversation. We get the same shot of Zeus from the teaser, then Thor attacking someone with lightning. This looks like the planet or moon Gorr was just destroying, so there's a good chance this is part of the big Gorr fight near the end of the movie. We see Valkyrie fighting Gorr in what looks like that same location, but Valkyrie is fighting with a lightning bolt that she almost certainly gets from Olympus at some point earlier. Next, we see Thor's ship crashing into Olympus. It looks like Thor doesn't quite stick the landing, since it may be the first time he's controlling a ship with Stormbreaker. It seems as though the ship crashes into Olympus, Thor and his team disguise themselves in colorful garments, Zeus discovers them, gets upset with the unannounced guests, and eventually a fight breaks out. Gorr says, "You are not like the other gods I've killed," probably referring to Thor. Then we see the Guardians fighting on the same planet we saw them on in the teaser. Back to Gorr's grayed out moon, where we see Jane and Thor kind of holding hands, implying there's a romantic spark again. They seem to be walking into the final battle against Gorr, as we get a shot of Thor and Gorr egging each other on. We get another shot of Jane summoning lightning in the same shrine-like place she was in before. Again, this doesn't seem like it's on Earth, but it could potentially be a location below New Asgard. After the title treatment, we get a fun scene of Thor and Zeus, as Zeus accidentally tears away all of Thor's clothing, causing his patrons to pass out at the sight of Thor's massive hammer of the gods. Just before the trailer ends, we get another look at Thor fighting on the planet where he's helping the Guardians. That wraps up our breakdown of the Thor Love and Thunder official trailer. Once again, if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below. Thank you for watching. We have a ton of Thor Love and Thunder coverage coming in July, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. If you enjoyed the video, please don't forget to like and share with someone who loves Marvel and Thor.